Thank you for joining me today with this program of Walking with God in the Garden. I'm Dick Halls. I have been a pastor, a chaplain, and now I have this program of trying to share some thoughts from the Bible about great characters of the Bible and insights. The Walking with God in the Garden is an account which is given to us in the book of Genesis, chapter 3, which says that Adam walked with God in the cool of the day. I encourage people to walk with God, not only in the cool of the day, but all the day, wherever you are. I was talking to some people today who told me that they walk with God when they're driving the car, oftentimes when they're walking around the block, whenever they have an opportunity to spend that precious time with God. Walking with God in life is an important part of life because ultimately we know that life comes to an end. The story I want to share with you today from the Bible is the story of Jacob. Jacob is an interesting person, and the story is recorded for us in the book of Genesis, where it says that Jacob was born with a brother whose name was Esau. And when the brothers grew up, there was conflict, to the point that Jacob had to flee for his life from his brother because of a bad thing that he had done. As he fled, he was able to go to a fellow family member. And when he did, he not only was able to live there and earn a living, but he was able to have a marriage and to have children, to build an estate and a great inheritance. Finally, the day came for him to return home, and he did, to reunite with his father and with his brother. In the ensuing years, there was conflict, however, with his children. One of his children was Joseph, his favorite. And in his favoritism to Joseph, as I've mentioned before here in this program, we are told that his brothers became jealous to the point of where they plotted, and they ultimately sold him as a slave to the Egyptians. While he was there in Egypt, of course, his father had to have some accounting of his death. So the brothers plotted together to tell their father that their son, Joseph, the favorite son of Joseph, was dead. Jacob mourned the loss of his son. The Bible tells us he never got over that. But then one day, an amazing thing happened. And that amazing thing was there was a famine in the land. And it forced an issue for the brothers to go to Egypt, where now Joseph had risen to great power and authority, and they had to go to Egypt to buy food. As they appear before their brother, Joseph, they don't recognize him, but he recognizes them. And over a few years, we are told that ultimately there was a day of reckoning. They had to appear before Joseph. Finally, Joseph reveals himself to them and sends them back to Canaan to get their father. In this process of living for Jacob and for the family, there is an issue of what we call unfinished business. I want to read for you today the day when that unfinished business with Jacob, the father, and his son Joseph takes place. It says in the book of Genesis, chapter 46, that Jacob says, when he meets his son, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are still alive." The question is, when are we ready to die? We can live our lives out and do just about anything we want to do, accomplish, build, create. But then the day comes when we get older and we are ready to die. There may be a lot of unfinished business in your life, people you need to talk to, issues that need to be resolved, apologies that need to be made, something in life that is not finished. This is the story of a father and a son with a statement, "Now I am ready to die." But there's something that comes before that, and it is reckoning how old you are. This story continues, and I read it for you today because Jacob was asked one day, "How old are you?" Has anybody ever asked you that question? Does it alarm you when they ask you how old you are and you have to admit how old you are? Frankly, that used to be an issue with me. As I got older, I didn't like to tell people how old I was. It's only when you get close to be 100 that you admit readily how old you are. But listen to this interesting little dialogue between Pharaoh, who was the king of Egypt, and Jacob, where it says in the 47th chapter, after Jacob blessed Pharaoh, Pharaoh asked him, "How old are you?" And Jacob answered with these words, "My years have been few and difficult, and they do not equal the years of the pilgrimage of my father." He tells him how old he is. And it's interesting from the standpoint of the years that Jacob lives, because he says, "The years of my pilgrimage are 130. When we come face to face with how old we are and we admit it, and we see that life is passing, there are other issues that have to be dealt with, and Jacob does. And I would like to share with you one of the things that's interesting from the standpoint of Jacob and a great lesson of life. It's recorded for us in this chapter, the 28th verse. Jacob lived in Egypt 17 years, and the years of his life were 140. When the time came near for Jacob to die, he called for his son Joseph and said to him, "If I have found favor in your eyes, then put your hand under my thigh, and promise that you will show me kindness and faithfulness. Do not bury me in Egypt, but when I rest with my fathers, carry me out of Egypt and bury me where they are buried. I will do as you say," said Joseph. There's a time when we have to deal with that final moment of life, this long walk that we have taken. And it is how we want things settled in that final moment when we pass on. And we have to take time to tell people, maybe a family member, maybe a friend, depending on your circumstances, how you want to be buried. Do you want to be cremated? Do you want a full body burial? Do you want to be buried in the local cemetery or in some far distant place where maybe you came from? The issue is to gain some confidence in yourself as to where you want to be buried, and to get a commitment from the person who will make that final arrangement on your behalf. Jacob was insistent that Joseph would fulfill his wishes, and that is to carry his body back to the place of his fathers. Along with that, there's one other thing, and I share it with you today, and it is how you handle the final arrangements in your relationship with your family and your friends. And Jacob did that, where it says, and I read for you today how he did that. He gathers his sons around him, and he says to them, "I want to tell you how I have seen your lives, what you have meant to me, and what needs to be done in your preparation for the rest of your life. I have 5 children. I need to do that with my family. I find that this story is a reminder to take the time to share your appreciation for their lives, things that you have found very meaningful and grateful, and finally, to conclude by saying, I'm so grateful to have been a part of your lives, and you have been a part of my life. Jacob gave that final word to his sons. And then these final words and the final moment of this long walk, where it says, then he gave them these instructions. I'm about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers. And then these final words in verse 33. When Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. That's how Jacob's life ended. He became an old man, lived his life out. Finally, in that final moment, when his family gathered around him, we are told, Jacob knew the end had come. And it says, he breathed his last and was gathered unto his people. Friends, that's how it is in life. And I pray that you take the time in your own life to prepare for this final and last walk of life. God bless you. And if you need any assistance in this process, please feel very free to be in touch with me, that I might help guide you into these great steps of that long walk that we all will take.